Hi, I'm Courtney with eNumber Cruncher, and I'm here to talk about the 5 financial steps that you can take on the road to recovery. So the very first step that I would like to discuss is your books. This is a very important piece to knowing your numbers at any given moment. And when you're in a crisis, that is a very important thing to know, but it's really important all year round. So having your books up to date is step 1. And I want to start off by saying this is a shame-free zone. So if you have your books, you haven't done them since last year, or maybe you haven't reviewed your profit and loss in quite some time, do not worry. You are not the only small business owner who is in that position. So shame-free here. All I'm asking you to do is to take the step to get your books in order and cleaned up and start looking at and reviewing your profit and loss. If you're at a point where you're overwhelmed with that, definitely find somebody who can help. So I personally help small business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping, but maybe it's you find a bookkeeper or you find a new CPA who's a little bit more strategic and helping give lessons on reading your profit and loss report. So that's the very first step. The second step is I highly recommend finding and reading the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And this is really good, especially for small business owners who struggle by the time they get to tax time when their CPA says, well, this is the profit that you made, but there's no cash in the bank. So this is something that has really revolutionized my business, but a lot of small business owners who, like I said, just really struggle with the profit piece, like where's my profit going? The third step is to go through your expenses with a fine-tooth comb. And so as a small business owner, you're going to need to do that for your personal so that you know the minimum amount that you need to draw out as the owner. And then you also need to do that for your business. And so I highly recommend while you're doing the expenses and going through them, you set up a budget. So you set up a budget for your personal and your professional, your business. And I use a tier system. So tier 1 is really mission critical. I highlight those in a different color. Tier 2 is things that you can get away with or defer. So maybe you're in a spot where you need to defer some payments. So if you have really good relationships with your vendor, you can talk to them and come up with a payment plan or something like that. But definitely getting a budget together so that you know how much you need to draw into the business on a monthly basis to cover those expenses. The next step is to run a cash forecast. Now, this is a little bit different than a budget. A cash forecast is telling you when you're actually going to collect the money. What month is that? And so for people who bill their clients and get paid at a later date, you could bill in March but get paid in April or May. So the cash forecast is actually when you expect to collect the money and then when you actually expect to pay out the expenses. And so what this does is it helps you to know if you have enough money or cash to cover the expenses in a given month and how long, if all business stopped and you had no revenue coming in, how long you would be able to go before your cash ran out. And the final step is to use what you've learned during this pandemic or whatever crisis mode that you have, because as small business owners, this will not be the last time as a business owner that you go into a crisis. It's part of doing business. So use what you've learned during this time and set up procedures. So maybe you had a really hard time getting to the PPP program because you weren't banking with a small business. You didn't really have a good banking relationship. So if it were me, I would move to a local bank, all my stuff to a local bank, and start that relationship with a new banker, somebody that you can check in with on a yearly basis, or maybe even quarterly. And if it's something where you didn't have a really good relationship with your vendor, they weren't really lenient with you during hard times, maybe that's where you need to start building your relationships and setting up a procedure. Maybe it was your whole staff had to go remote in an instant and you did not know how to do that. Well, now you do because you went through the process. So documenting those processes and where your weaknesses were, getting those to the point to where they're strengths for the next time that something happens in your business and you need to lean on a bank and you need to lean on your vendors for assistance. The last little bonus piece that may or may not feel financial to you is to really make sure that you have good business mentors. And that could be somebody locally that you meet face to face ish on Zoom, or when we can, have limitations removed, you can meet with them in person, or it could be a virtual one who doesn't even know your name, but you really admire what they're doing in their business. But really making sure that you are watching people who are growing and pivoting and thinking outside of the box, because especially right now, as small business owners, we really need to figure out how we can survive in this kind of environment. And so what I just wanted to say from the mentors that I have learned from is that, and that's really been helping me lately, is that not everyone is struggling. Not everyone has lost their job, and you have an important service that the world needs. And so if you haven't heard that lately, I just want to end by encouraging you to say that even though it feels like everyone is struggling, not everyone is struggling. Not everyone has lost their job. And you are on this earth to create a valuable experience or service for the people who, your perfect person, your perfect ICA, your perfect client. And they need you right now. So please don't forget that. If you are doing your own bookkeeping with QuickBooks and you need support, click below to get your books tidied up.